What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I wanted to talk to you about Rivian. I want to give you my bull case and my bear case within the short term. So as far as how I see things going, I'm going to talk on a lot of the influential factors that might cause it to go up, down, sideways. I'm going to go over all that. Make sure first hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, it did go down 0.81%. And basically when this was around 26.50-ish, I was doing videos and I said based on the technicals and many other factors, I did feel that it needed to pull back around to the 2050 mark. So the fact that it is around this range, I feel like this is a very justified video. So I wanted to talk on, like I said, what is next. So I'm going to start off by going over some of the data points and just stuff that might be influencing Rivian in the short term before I give you my price predictions for my bear case and my bull case. So I'm going to go over all that. So starting off with the technicals, of course, there is a lot of, I guess, broader economic concerns, more specifically coming out from Evergrande. A lot of people are starting to think of the repercussions of that on a global scale. So I feel like based on, if you kind of excluded that, it was going to bounce up higher. So of course, that 2050 mark that I've been signaling, which is right here, this S1 on the fib level, so 2058, I feel like that was going to hold. But because of the broader fears I did mention, it did break that temporarily on Friday. So it did have $20.18 as a low, 21.17. So there's going to be a lot of volatility, as I've signaled in the past, based on even the spread on a lot of the support and resistance points or between them. That does signal that there's going to be a lot of volatility. So just be aware of that. But this $20.58 so far has actually held up very, very well. And that's been its saving grace, because even if you look on the technicals, compare Rivian to any other growth stock out there, Rivian surprisingly is doing fairly well. Obviously, a lot of growth stocks and a lot of other EVs are currently trading between this S3 and the S2. So once again, just be aware of that. But of course, the technicals are breaking down a little bit. And as well, looking at the momentum indicator, shows number of retail investors are getting out and have been getting out for a while now. Stochastic is currently at 9. There is no defined trend. So just on a side note. And as far as options, so options based on Friday, there was $3.76 million in calls being purchased versus $3.75 million in puts. And that's obviously fairly evenly divided. But if you kind of compare this data to previous days, there was a little bit more of an increase in puts, insinuating people are anticipating for it to trend down. So of course, this is just one data point of many that's kind of signaling that it might be pointing down. But of course, there's a lot of factors either way that I'm going to share with you. So I'm going to go over shorts as well and what they are doing, especially going into next week. So starting off, as you can see, short score is currently 59, utilization is 29.89. And as I've said in the past, I don't see Rivian being a squeeze. I'm just bringing this up more so as a benchmark. But 12.72% of the free floats being shorted, 84.1 million shares overall are being shorted. Shorts on Friday did increase 779,000 shares. And the way I interpret this is on a red day and they are increasing, it shows that they do anticipate for it to continue to trend down, similar to what the options activity did say. Cost to borrow average is 0.88%, so that's obviously very, very small and low. In fact, even cost to borrow, the minimum is negative 0.2%, meaning there's a broker out there physically paying people to short Rivian. So again, there's that attribute. But despite the run up that did happen, of course, there was a lot of analysts that was very, very optimistic based on the Q1 and Q2 earnings. So even though the options activity in shorts and the technicals are negative and pointing to it potentially trending down, you also at the same time have a company that, despite the market conditions, because a lot of other EVs were saying during their recent Q2 earnings, not necessarily the most optimistic stuff, but in Rivian's case, Q1 and Q2 were very, very good earnings. So this is why, despite everything, you do see a nice kind of increase in ratings coming from analysts and a lot more bullishness. So even though it is at $20 right now, still 4 days ago, there was an analyst that did give a buy rating from Mizuho and a $32 price target. And even Exane before that, $30. And D.A. Davidson, $25. And a lot of these analysts do have fairly good ratings. So once again, I do feel that there is a lot of high expectations for Rivian, and most likely they are actually going to meet and exceed all of those expectations. And even looking at a lot of the multiples right now, so currently it is 6.6, the future is 3.6. So even in that regard, comparing Rivian to a lot of the other EVs that is out there, it's more evenly priced, if not actually more at a significant discount. And quickly just going back over here, on a side note, if you are looking for a lot of good kind of this information, analyst ratings, forecasts, and as you can see, even Morningstar reports, take a look at Interactive Brokers, completely free to have an account with this. So link in the description below and also the comments. But once again, Morningstar, the latest Morningstar report, which I do believe came out last Thursday, if I remember correctly, but it does show the fair market value for Rivian being $36.90. So even in that regard, I do feel that there's a lot of upside coming. So this downtrend that potentially might come is just more on a broader scale, and this is what obviously options and shorts are piggybacking off of. But in reality, as far as a low, I do feel that potentially around, based on the technicals of course, around $15 is most likely going to be done. So again, worst case scenario, I do feel maybe this 2058 might not hold, and obviously there's a slippery slope. If it breaks below that, it'll quickly go down to around the 1424. So around $15 I do feel is very realistic that it would be the low, at least in the short term. Of course, there's a lot of different circumstances in either direction, but as far as the bullish case, there's one thing that might be coming out fairly soon that actually would be helping Rivian quite significantly. And of course, what happened on this day, so I believe it was August the 16th, this is where Ford came out with news saying they are pushing back their EV truck, and I believe it's later in the year. That does show that they might not actually be having everything in line and everything working perfectly for them, and bad for them, good for Rivian. That's obviously direct competition. Similar nature when it comes down to that, there is a potential strike coming, I believe mid-September. That would be for right here, General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. Bad for them, very good for Rivian. So even though right now there's a lot of negativity in the market, I do feel based on the Q1 and Q2 earnings, this potential strike, and as well just the large amount of transactions. So big money has been secretly really watching Rivian behind the scenes. So based on even Friday after hours, which normally is very, very quiet, you see a lot of big transactions. Even though there's a lot of bearish technicals, there still is a lot of people that are anticipating taking obviously these discounted prices from Rivian right now, even at the $20, $21 mark, and realizing that potentially these analysts, even at these ratings right here, are kind of conservative, so it could go up significantly higher. But at least in the short term, I do feel that at least $28 is very realistic, assuming that there is a strike and the whole Evergrande thing doesn't really develop into something more, and this is all just a very big overreaction. A lot of stocks, including Rivian, is going to correct to pretty much back to what it was. So around the $28 range, I do feel is fairly realistic. So coming from a risk versus reward standpoint, I do feel it is kind of still evenly divided, but there is a lot more upside. And I feel that even if the broader economic concerns do escalate a little bit more, a lot of stocks that gave bad guidance for the rest of the year are going to get completely slammed. Whereas Rivian, in that case, they obviously have a huge amount of demand well into 2024. They are going to do fairly well. So that's just my own opinion. So I do feel that the bear case might be around the $15 range, and as far as the bull case, probably around the $28, but you never know, especially based on Rivian. When it did go up as much as it did, it can go up very, very fast. So let me know you guys' thoughts on all of this in the comments below. What is your, for instance, bear and bull case, at least in the short term, let's say around the next 2 months per se. So I know that might be a little extreme, but especially in Rivian, things move very, very fast in both directions. Of course, as you can even see, it had a very fast downward trend from around the $28 mark, which was at the beginning of August. And obviously you see where we are now, vice versa, how it goes up. So definitely a lot of interesting things are going to be in Rivian's future. But generally, as I've said in the past on previous videos, people aren't necessarily going to care whether you bought in at 20 or maybe at 15. because when it is back at $100 or potentially even higher in, let's say, 5 to 10 years from now, that is where you're going to be making the serious money. So you're not going to really worry about catching the bottom, but of course there's a fair amount of people that always like to day trade and stuff like that. So let me know you guys' thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And one final thing, even though Rivian goes up, down, sideways, all over the place, take advantage of these promos with Moomoo. It's only up until August 31st, completely free to sign up for an account with Moomoo. But if you do throw $100 at the account, you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So that in among itself is a crazy deal, but better yet, you do get a $50 cash reward. So even that in among itself is a crazy deal. This is only available for Americans, just so you guys are aware. But if you do live in Canada, Moomoo is actually heading to Canada fairly soon. So they're doing a soft launch, so you can actually sign up for their app, take a look at it. All you need is just a phone number. No other information is required, so take advantage of that. And once you sign up, you can enter to win some gift cards, Tim's, Amazon, and various other things. So with that said, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a ton of money on Rivian.